Okay, so we wrapped up the 4A state championship game. Now let's go on to end of season. And the first award I want to kind of hand out here is Team of the Year. And I think when you bring home a state championship, you're the only team from Fort Wayne that advances the state championship game. I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
But I would have to think it's the Bishop Dwenger Saints.
When I was heading over here, I was thinking about this question. I go, what if I went Adams Central here? Because they ran up against a Pioneer team that we saw what they did on Saturday, went in by, what was it, 60-0 in the final.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you have to go Bishop Dwenger, winning a state championship. What they did this year, first-year coach, new guys on the staff, having to change a quarterback mid-season, how that went. A team that you look and say, yeah, Joe Tippmann's going D1 to Wisconsin, but you're not looking at this team saying, wow, they're loaded with D1 talent. So what they were able to do this season, impressive. But I think we need to give credit to Adams Central. I think in any other season, if Pioneer next year is up in 2A, Adams Central, I think, comfortably wins a state championship. Unfortunately for them, Pioneer was in 1A.
Yeah, there was no doubt that the state championship game in 1A was played at the semi-state level when they met over at Logansport a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely, and Adams Central, despite that game being lopsided score at the end, was the team that gave Pioneer the most trouble this year, not just the postseason.
Yeah, at halftime it looked like things could go any which way.
Yeah, right.
Also, deserving some consideration, I think Wayne. You know, we had been waiting for this Wayne team. It seemed like they had been building since this senior class was freshmen. They win against Snyder, 21-7. That kind of exercises some demons to a certain degree.
Yep.
Their 3 losses this season are twice to a state champion in their class, one by 1 point.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about they also lost to, a good 6A team in Homestead. Just a good season for Wayne overall.
And I think, if Wayne is able to get an extra point, are we talking about Wayne being a state championship team? Because they lose to the eventual state title winner. So, yeah, Wayne 1 point away or 2 points away, however you want to look at it, from potentially being a state champion.
I also had on my list Angola. Obviously, they finished undefeated in the regular season. Got a couple of big postseason wins, but ultimately kind of ran into the state champion, in the sectional championship.
Yeah, and East Noble from running the table in the NE8. And, of course, they run into a very good team in 4A. 4A is so difficult to get out of in this area.
Player of the year. You mentioned, obviously, Joe Tippmann.
Yeah.
But there's not a ton of guys that just stick out to you. They've got a ton of solid players at Bishop Dwenger. I don't know, maybe Tippmann's your guy.
I think you can go Tippmann because he played both sides. We saw him line up in the offensive backfield, had a couple carries. Of course, he was the lead blocker, too. Mm-hmm. I think you look at Logan Macklin and what he was able to do at Adams Central over the last couple of years, particularly this year, senior leader for that team. Arguably the second best team in the state in 1A. I don't think there's any comparison. And a guy that you look at, and not many players in 1A you can look at and say, he could play Friday nights in the SAC and be as good as he is now. Mm-hmm. Logan Macklin's that kid. He could play for a Homestead or Lures or Dwenger or Snyder and do exactly what he's doing that he did with the Flying Jets.
I agree. I had him as my number 1 guy, over 1,700 yards rushing, led the team in receiving, 95 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, a couple taken back for touchdowns, did it on special teams as well. I mean, here's a guy who, in every facet of the game, impacted whatever they did on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, he's the guy. Tippmann, you can make a good case for Tippmann. Jordan Presley, Norman Kanapke, Everett Johnson, Bluffton, I think is a guy.
I had him on the list. He was my 4th guy. Great minds. I don't know what our excuse is, but great minds supposedly think alike.
Smart people are writing our material. We'll say that.
I got an intern to do mine. No, and it's funny because here we are at this point talking about players of the year, and we haven't mentioned Craig Young, who, by the way, is going to Ohio State.
Yeah, and I think, he is as good of a player as he was last year, the year before. Mm-hmm. He just had a lot of help, particularly defensively. Tristan Purnell, Darius Alexander, Xavier Ellington were all really, really good players defensively for Wayne. So Craig didn't have to do everything, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, and on offense as well with that two-headed rushing attack that they had.
All right, so obviously a lot of talent in the area this year. Coach of the year, who would you say is your coach of the year?
I think you go Jason Garrett. I think just what he had to deal with in preseason and the talk of him taking over that program to coming in as a first-year coach, putting the right people in at offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and his assistant coaches to lead that team throughout all that they went through in the offseason into this season, winning a state title. I think it's Jason Garrett.
Who else would you consider? I would say I had on my list Derek Moore. I had Andy Thomas because I thought You wondered after last year if Angola was going to be a 1 year or a 2 year wonder because Roddy graduated, a bunch of seniors had graduated. Like, how can they replenish that? And they were just as good, if not better, this season, which is surprising considering how many holes that they had to plug in.
Yeah, Derek Moore is a good one because he deals with a completely different set of circumstances than what Jason Garrett would. And for him to take that team, which we knew was going to have talent, and really focus it where it needed to be to win football games, they were able to do that. And also during the school day. I mean, you can't overstate just what he deals with day after day after day during the school day compared to Jason Garrett or other places at other schools, you know? So he's playing by a different set of rules than everybody else is, and I think it's an underrated thing that successful coaches like Derek Moore deal with and are able to succeed in.
But I also had Michael Mosier on there. I also had Kunkel on there. I'm getting a lot of love.
Brent Kunkel, right? Yeah.
Because, you just kind of wondered last year, could they keep it up? They did. They replaced a number of personnel, and they still were a tough out on every Friday night for ACAC teams.
And it's one of those Bluffton where you're going, okay, now are they taking a step forward, I think, under Brent Kunkel? And I think there's no doubt that they are. So when you look at an ACAC, it goes, who can compete consistently up there with the big three year after year? Woodland, AC, and South Adams. Could Bluffton be that team under Coach Kunkel as it continues to have strides going forward?
All right, now this is is the glass half full or half empty question.
I always go half empty. So
well, we know. What is your biggest surprise from the 2018 high school football season?
Ooh, biggest surprise. I think, and I'll go glass half full here with the Wayne Generals, because I think, we heard about it, right, for 2 years, and we were saying, well, until you beat somebody, we're not convinced. And they go out and beat Snyder, and they beat some other good teams, and they're there in the last week competing for the SAC and the victory bell. So, yeah, glass half full. I think I'm drinking the milk out of the half full glass with the Wayne Generals. I think they impressed me because there was always a bit of doubt in there that could they do it, because we know Derek Moore. Derek Moore likes to hype his team. And you're going, yeah, Coach Moore, yeah, we'll see. And we saw it this year. They were able to live up to the hype.
To me, this wasn't as much as a surprise of a single team, but it was a surprise of how much parity there was in the SAC. It was like a surprise every single week when you see Northrop rise up and beat somebody, or Northside, that Northside Lures game. I mean, it was a season where you weren't sure who was going to get an upset on Friday night, but you knew something was going to happen that you didn't expect to happen, and it made it all that much more fun to cover. I mean, I think it was probably the most unpredictable season we've had in high school football, especially from the SAC's perspective, in a number of years.
Yeah, when I was in newspapers, the second half of the year, you could pinpoint two games the last 4 weeks that you had to cover, and then you having to decide everywhere you guys are going on Fridays, trying to figure out the SAC and where you needed to be when had to be crazy compared to past years.
You needed to be everywhere.
Yeah, right? So usually by 4 or 5 weeks in, you knew exactly where you needed to be. But every week was a surprise in the SAC.
One of the bigger surprises to me, and this is the glass half empty, was Carroll, because I thought at the beginning of the year they were going to be pretty good. And then after the Snyder win, which I was at that game, the way they dominated Snyder, I was thinking, man, this Carroll team is going to compete for an SAC championship. And then they finished 3-7. The wheels kind of fell off the bus. And that surprised me, because what I saw in week 2, I thought was going to be an SAC championship type caliber team.
And that was a case when they beat Snyder. That wasn't Snyder beating itself. I mean, that was Carroll coming out and dominating them on both sides of the football for sure. So yeah, definitely one of the surprises with Carroll. And then you look now going forward with 6A, with now Snyder dropping down, and you're saying, okay, now it's Carroll and Homestead going to really battle like they did before Snyder got pushed up. So where does Carroll go in the offseason to battle Homestead, who I think we look at that roster and say, man, they bring a heck of a lot back from the Spartans team of this year.
I also had Belmont as a surprise, because you're talking about a team that goes 0-9 in the regular season, and I thought they were ready to take a little bit of a step up. And then in the playoffs, they're playing for a sectional championship. They reel off 2 wins, especially the win against Concordia in the sectional semifinals.
And they score first against Lures in that final, and you go, oh my gosh, here we go again.
This could happen. Right? What's going on?
Yeah, definitely. That was a great story for them, particularly coming, 10 years after them winning a state championship?
Yeah, 2008.
So, that was a lot of memories made in 08 in the playoffs, and some memories made in 18 playoffs for Belmont.
I'm old. Now, you just mentioned that. I was like, I remember when Nick Hall was running the football.
Wasn't that 2 years ago?
Daniel Meyer, and that was a whole decade ago. Wow. All right, on that, we shall reflect. We appreciate you coming in every
Always
Monday
a pleasure,
to talk
my man.
high school football. He's
Definitely.
Justin Kinney from Optimum Performance Sports, and hopefully we'll have you back next season to talk some football every Monday.
Absolutely, I'll be here.
All right, thanks for watching this week's edition of Inside the Zone. We'll see you later.